Recently, we reacted to a food video from Portugal to find out if Portuguese food was the best in the world. Well, we cannot answer it just yet, but in the video we were really shocked because we noticed that there's a lot of similarity between Portuguese food and Thai food. So literally half of us, literally a lot of you guys in the comments said we need to watch this video about why Portuguese food is eaten everywhere.
Yo.
By Matthew Lee. And I think that the first thing in the video is going to be about Thailand and then other Asian country, I think. I'm not sure if it's all Asian, but you guys said this video is amazing. So let's react. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Okay.
This is Phoi Thong.
Oh,
It's one of my wife's
You know
favorite
that,
desserts
right?
from Thailand.
Yeah.
It's made from funneling egg yolk into these little strings with syrup. Now, when I found out about this process, I thought it was pretty cool, but specific. So I did a bit of research into the history of it, into how it came to be. And then I found out that it's not originally from Thailand, but Portugal.
From here came the
did you know that?
Of course I know it.
You know that it was from Portugal.
Yeah, I told you the lady that I showed you, she created it. That was in the history.
Yeah.
Mali Tongi Tong something.
Oh, it's that dessert?
Yeah, this is also a group of the dessert that I show. Phoi Thong, the other one is Thong Yip Thong Yot. You know, it come from egg, like egg yolk, thing like that. Yeah, every time when people like want to sell it or they want to make it for the temple thing like that, they always gonna make these three.
At the temple?
Yeah, when we want to, give away or donate something.
Oh, donate to the monk?
Yeah, because like she was making this food for the royal family, right?
Oh,
Thing
in
like
the
that.
history?
Yeah, in the history. So so we consider this kind of like dessert is more like lucky or like high class thing like that. But right now we can find it at 7-Eleven. Everywhere.
At 7-Eleven?
Yeah, we have it at 7-Eleven.
sailors that made the maritime power that developed into modern Portugal.
Now, the weird thing is, Thailand was never a Portuguese colony. In fact, it was never a colony at all. So why is a Portuguese sweet one of Thailand's biggest snacks? This reminded me that my family is originally from Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we have this sweet called dan tat, or egg tart. And dan tat is really similar to a Portuguese sweet called pastel de nata.
We have this in Thailand. These I love, but you guys told us in the comment that the one that we have in Thailand is very different because it costs like 30 cents or something, or 40 cents per little thing. It's like street food in Thailand, that thing. They cook it in front of you, right? But the one in Portugal are more sophisticated. It's more like a dish, like a real dessert. It's not like a fast food dessert that you eat like quickly.
This one makes a bit more sense because Hong Kong was right next to a Portuguese colony, Macau, and Portugal had been trading with Guangdong, the region that Hong Kong was a part of, for centuries before the British ever colonized it. But it's not only just these two places. Japan, the country that I'm currently living in now, also has a Portuguese-inspired sweet called Castella. But not only was Japan never a colony, they had blocked off trade from every Western nation for over 200 years. Well, they let the Dutch in, but that was it. So how is it that the Portuguese were the ones who influenced Japanese cuisine? I mean, even the Japanese word for bread, pan, is a loan word from Portuguese. This is kind of crazy to me because Portuguese cuisine isn't that famous. It's not like French or Italian cuisine. And it's really even hard to find a Portuguese restaurant. But despite this, Portuguese food seems to be hiding everywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really true what he's saying because I have never seen a Portuguese restaurant in Thailand.
True.
Like I have seen a lot of Italian, I have seen a lot of French, I have seen a lot of
Indian?
Yeah, and even when you go to Laos and Cambodia because they were colonized, right? You see a lot of French.
Yeah, French.
But Portugal did not like conquer per se country here. Maybe that's why they don't have their restaurant.
Oh.
But I don't know why it's so popular their food here if they did not conquer. Like you said, the person visited and then maybe Thai. It's part of the Thai culture because Thai love like what Portugal did. But they just try to inspire them or something instead of like trying to like rush them. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
And I mean everywhere, in literally almost every continent. So how is it that this small country's food made it so many other cultures? And how is Portuguese cuisine actually one of the most influential in the world? let's move around the world today and briefly look at some dishes that have some influence from Portuguese cuisine, starting with where we left off, Japan. Beyond Castella, there's actually a few Japanese dishes that are inspired by the Portuguese, but I'm gonna single out the most famous one, tempura. Before Japan had
Yes.
closed itself from the West, Portugal actually had a pretty significant influence here. They were the first Europeans to actually reach Japan. So they were the ones who
See?
introduced them to guns, Christianity,
Oh,
and
yes.
Western food.
Actually, the same reason.
In Thailand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what did they carry though. It's more like trade and teach. Like, they bought some kind of like weapon thing like that, because back in the day we always use a sword thing like that, right, on the war. But then they bought something that you can shoot, and then like the Netherlands. Back in the day, we call them Hollander, thing like that. They bought like they teach us how to build the boat, the war boat that you go, and then like fire gun, thing like that.
Okay, by the way, quick side note, Portugal had a slave trade with Japan where they traded Japanese, Korean, and Chinese slaves to bring back to Portugal. Like, what? How am I just finding out about this now? Eventually, it was the Christianity part, not the slavery, that freaked out Japan, and that's why they closed off the country. But not before the Portuguese influenced Japan to start cooking food with eggs and flour. Tempura became a popular street food in Japan, and the rest is history, because we need to move on to the next location, Malaysia. Now,
What do they have in Malaysia that should be popular? Maybe fried rice with seafood? Because we saw in another video that it's
Malaysia
popular,
has
right?
a complicated
What is it?
colonial history. They were colonized and occupied by a lot of different countries, but the first Europeans to do so were the Portuguese. In the 15th century, Portugal colonized Malacca, a part of now modern-day Malaysia. During this time, a bunch of Portuguese started having families with the native Malaccans, and their children became a racially mixed group of people called the Kristang. The Kristang went on to develop a curry called Gari Debo. Debo meaning leftovers, and because it's spicy, the English translation of it became Devil's Curry. But the original name has nothing to do with the devil. In fact, it's actually a dish that's meant to be eaten right after Christmas, because the curry is meant to be made with leftovers from a Christmas meal. But speaking of curry, let's move on to India. A lot of people
India.
associate Indian colonization with the British, but Portugal had its own colony in India, and they actually held on to their colony longer than the British did. One of India's most popular curries, Vindaloo, comes from here, a state called Goa. What makes Vindaloo
Vindaloo,
different from
wow.
other Indian curries is that it uses the ingredient vinegar, something that wasn't really used by Indians at the time. The Portuguese had brought vinegar with them to marinate and preserve their meat for the long journey sailing towards India. And it was the marination of vinegar that gave their meat an enhanced flavor, which the Indians have been using ever since for Vindaloo curry.
Crazy to think that they didn't even know about vinegar until Portuguese came. It's crazy when you think of it, right? Like, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that India was doing that Portugal didn't know about. But still, it's
Yeah.
crazy when you think about it. It's not that long ago, like 500 years ago, 400 years ago, that they literally didn't know that vinegar existed or something. But it goes to think why, like, certain culture like sweet better or salty better or sour better. It's because of what they had access to historically, right?
Yeah.
And kind of your taste, yes, you're not born with like, oh, you're gonna like this food, but I think that some people, like Thai people, they are more predisposed to like spicy food, right? And I think there's a part of genetic in that, like from
Actually,
generation to generation
yeah,
somehow.
actually, if you talk about spicy, like different regions have different spicy. Like people in the north, they don't really eat spicy like us. And if you go to the south, they also eat really spicy, but the taste is different from people from the northeast, thing like that.
Yeah.
Preservation of meat was so important to Portugal because they were the first Europeans to really try and explore the globe, often having to sail around Africa, which is where we're going next.
What sorcery is this?
If you're a fan of chiquinandos from South Africa, you can thank the Portuguese for that as well. The sauce used for peri peri chicken in South Africa was first produced by the Portuguese, who were exploring the region at the time.
Peri peri sound Portuguese though when you think about
peri?
peri.
Said that the
Sound
Portuguese
familiar.
mixed chili peppers native to the area with foreign ingredients like paprika, onion, and basil. They eventually left southern Africa, leaving the peri peri sauce they developed with the Africans, who soon started using it to marinate their chicken. But there's a bit of a dispute on where exactly this started. The two most likely answers are either modern-day Angola or Mozambique. Moving on, this next one's probably gonna piss off a few people. Nando's isn't the only popular food in the UK inspired by Portugal. In fact, one of Britain's largest institutions is based off of Portuguese cuisine. Fish and chips.
Fish and chips.
Oh no!
Elegant.
Okay, I'll be honest. Portugal isn't the only party involved here. Fried fish was brought to Britain by Jewish refugees in the form of the Portuguese and Spanish dish pescado frito, which looks very different to fish and chips today. Now, all this happened
that
around
why
the
it's fish and
16th century, and it's evolved to become
Well, because it's fish and chips. Oh, you didn't know why it was called fish and chips? Well, French fry, I think it's from Belgium, right? It's not even from France.
Oh, weird.
part of Britain's
Yeah.
identity. But Thomas Jefferson, the President of the United States, even once described the dish as fried fish in a Jewish fashion. At the same time, chips, or what Americans call fries, were being introduced by the French and the Belgians. But obviously most people eat fish and chips without ever knowing of its Portuguese roots. Alright, let's move on to the Americas, with Brazil. This is probably the most straightforward entry in the list.
Because Brazil's, I mean, there's a lot of people don't know, but Brazil, they speak Portuguese. They don't speak Spanish like everywhere else.
Oh, yeah, I'm always like confused.
Because, yeah, they got colonized by Portugal. The rest it was by Spain. I don't know why Spain got everything except Portugal. I mean, there's a bit of French also in South America, but mostly it's Spanish. But Brazil is big, so
Yeah.
they probably they went from the Atlantic and they land there, and then Spanish land everywhere else.
Brazil was Portugal's most high-profile colony, having been colonized for over 300 years and being the country with the most Portuguese speakers in the world. Colonial Brazil was, of course, a terrible place with slavery, exhaustion of the land's resources, and all the other bad things that come with being a colony. But again, I just want to talk about the culinary footprint left by Portugal. And the best example of that is probably feijoada, a bean and meat stew.
Feijoada.
It's a national dish of Brazil using black beans, which alone is its own cultural symbol
Whoa.
in the country. So it's a very Brazilian dish. But the story of its origins is contested. Some say the dish was developed by slaves in Brazil who made the stew because all the ingredients were cheap and easy to obtain.
Weird, look
Others
good.
say that European settlers developed it with native ingredients from Brazil. Either way, the inspiration for the stew originally comes from a pork stew from ancient Rome and was brought to Brazil via Portugal.
Want to go out, Ruby? Okay.
I think she wanna pee.
Oh, she wanna pee. Okay.
Pee or poo.
Yeah, the color look good.
Yeah.
Finally, we're gonna move on to the last stop in this video. There's more dishes we could talk about, but for the sake of time and
Is he going
repetition,
Canada?
let's end it here
Almost.
in the United States,
To the
which to me at least was the most surprising one. The Portuguese culinary footprint in the US begins in Hawaii.
This is Hawaii, 50th state of the Union.
That makes sense. I don't know what he's gonna say, but they have a lot of food that you cannot find anywhere else in the US. So.
Hawaiian sweetbread is actually Portuguese sweetbread. It's a pretty universal kind of bread you can find anywhere in America, especially diners.
sweet
And was
bread.
something that I always thought was the product of some chemical bread factory company.
This
But
is
that I always thought
often
was
in Canada, in America, the bread you get. Let's say you go to a restaurant, right? Before usually you order like appetizer, your dinner, and then your dessert. But before that, sometimes they bring bread, and they're gonna bring bread that look like this, separated with butter, or garlic bread. But sometimes the bread it's not gonna be slice of bread. It's gonna be like this, a little bit more. a little bit better.
Was the product of some chemical bread factory company, but it came from Portuguese immigrants who moved from the Azores, a chain of islands that Portugal owns, to Hawaii, which has a very similar climate. And I think this is a perfect example of how Portuguese food is literally hiding everywhere. This bread has blended into the American identity, much like what happened in all the other countries on this list. Because unlike the French bringing baguettes to Vietnam or the Spanish bringing churros to Latin America, these foods' roots to Europe are kind of invisible. Portuguese food has somehow evolved to camouflage into very different...
Yeah, it's invisible because we don't know. Like churro, everyone know where it's from. Or what did you said? Banh mi. Like you know that it's not from Vietnam originally, but Pho Tong because of the name, right? Or whatever. It's like camouflage. You don't know it's from Portugal, but it's there.
culinary cultures.
Like,
Hawaiian sweetbread is eaten everywhere, every day, and not a single time does anyone ever think it's not American. And I can say the same for tempura in Japan, fish and chips in the UK, and peri peri chicken in southern Africa. These dishes don't belong to Portugal anymore. They belong to the countries that eat them. And while Portuguese cuisine isn't one we often think about, you're likely eating it more than you've ever noticed. What I'm trying to say is that Portuguese cuisine is underrated. It should be up there with French, Italian, and Spanish, but it's often overlooked. And another detail that I wanted to add it but couldn't really find a place in the video to put it is that the Portuguese were the first Europeans to really try and explore the world. I mean, they were really the first Europeans to really establish sophisticated trade routes across Africa and Asia, so obviously they had first dibs to influence these places with their food. If you're from any country or place that I didn't mention and your cuisine was also influenced by Portugal, then let me know down in the comments because I would really love to just compile a list of literally every cuisine and every dish that...
you need to tell us about Canada. No, but honestly, it's because...
I know you French.
Yeah, but it's because Portuguese... I said we don't sell
Because you eat
restaurant.
butter.
We don't sell a Portuguese restaurant. But I think it's because each country have adapted the dish. So if you go to Portugal, I think it's going to taste a lot different. And you know, French fry, there's the word French in French fry, so you know where it's from, right? But a lot of the Portuguese dish, it's difficult by looking at the name to know it's from Portugal.
Yeah.
But I wonder why it's not more known. Everyone know like Italian food. Everyone know when it's inspired by French, but Portugal is like nobody knows.
Maybe you guys mix things together so much, and then is people like see that flavor anywhere.
Yeah.
That why like people not really remember.
And why there's no Portuguese restaurant in Thailand? There's a lot of Italian, a lot of French, a lot of British. There's German.
Maybe we just don't know. Maybe there's some in Bangkok that we
Like
not really
Portuguese and Spanish. I don't see these two a lot. Anyway. Very interesting video. Yes, thank you for watching. See you very soon.